Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Titan Business Builders. And today we have Salvatore Steffano as a guest. And I'll try to introduce you, Sal, so people know who you are. Sal is a digital marketing expert with over a decade of professional experience. You are extremely passionate about developing and automating sales and marketing systems that actually produce a measurable ROI.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, what's the point of doing all this stuff? If actually like making some money doing it, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And you just told me something really interesting, where you said like, what did you do actually last 15 years? So you build a business, but what did you actually do?
I mean, you just learn how not to do shit. Like so I was talking to one of our buddies yesterday. That's newer starting a business. And I was telling him, I was like, dude, like a lot of us that run these businesses, we're not like some super geniuses or nothing. We've just been doing stuff long enough that we've learned like a million ways not to do stuff. Like there's no such thing as failure if you don't give up. You just learn how not to do something. You know what I'm saying? So metaphor or whatever about your what was it, Jefferson, whoever invented the light bulb, and it was just like learned 1,000 ways not to invent the light bulb before he did. So
yeah, and I think that a lot of people forget that part, right? Especially if you see all those pictures on Instagram from successful entrepreneurs with a Lamborghini, with a Porsche and stuff like that. And they all think like, okay, I need to do it like right now and it will just happen overnight. And mistakes, no, I just do what they do, so it will be fine.
Yeah, I mean, you start your first business up, the first year you're super profitable, by the end of the year, like you're just driving Lambos, and you got 100 employees, you did $10 million. And then
sounds good.
No learning curve at all, it's like picking up a video game.
Yeah. I mean, that's easy, right? Just pick a program, implement it, and you have a successful business. Easy enough. So everybody should actually be a millionaire by now then.
Yeah, exactly. Now, forget about, like the decade of like poverty and misery and, stress and heartache and, learning how not to, outsource work to employees, taking on too much work, biting off more than you can chew. They don't show you that side. They don't show you the 2-3 years of going back to work, getting a job, after getting your butt kicked. That's it. I don't show you that side.
that would actually be something really cool to show or to be able to show people, and then asking them, do you still want to be an entrepreneur? And then seeing what the answer is from a lot of people. I think the majority will say, nah, leave it. I'm fine. Maybe it's not so bad, the 9 to 5, But yeah, I mean, we are entrepreneurs at heart. It's in our genes, I guess. So taking the easy route doesn't really fit us, I would say.
I mean, I feel like a lot of us, we think we're taking the easy way route. When you get into it, you're like, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to be my own boss, all this kind of stuff. And maybe even at first, it seems like it's going pretty good, Maybe you just start some new side hustle, maybe doing graphic design online or doing websites, or I don't know, maybe when you're a kid, like you're mowing lawns, seems like a lot of money, My first business, 20 years old, was doing graphic design, websites, stuff like that for online marketers, the old website forums like, Wikifire, Warrior Forum, Digital Point, those places. And I don't know, I think within like a couple months, I was making like $500 a day, but I was also back then, man, I was selling like websites for like $100. I was selling logos for like $20. Just like dirt cheap. I mean, I did my first few for free just to start getting a little bit of reputation online. And it's just, like you're just busting your ass, working 10, 12 hours a day. And then it's like, okay, this is like way back in the day before you had Upwork and before you had Fiverr and all that. Back then it was like, we're like talking to people on these different like online forums. I think you had like maybe Freelancer was a thing back then, .net, or, it's not as popular anymore. But it's a lot different, hiring working overseas. So, I went down that route. I was like, all right, cool. Well, now that I got money coming in, I'm getting sales. I was like closing deals on AOL Instant Messenger and Skype and things. And I remember hiring like my first people overseas to do work. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I'm just gonna, have them do the work, and I'm gonna sit here, play video games and whatnot, and just talk to clients. And so I'd give them the work, and it'd come back, and I have to redo it all anyways. And it's just so then you're out the money, then you got to redo the work, then you're out the time, then you're telling clients, like, all right, well, now I'm like late behind all the work. And so you go through all these different mistakes, and then you learn stuff like, to forecast, your project times longer, right? So if you think it's going to take 2 days, you tell your client double, and then like, if your clients like don't give you, like, for example, if I had clients still to this day that have given me like $1,000, $2,000 to build like a website or something, and literally never gave me like, the copy or answered a questionnaire and stuff like that. And so then you come to these things like, okay, well, if somebody doesn't submit this information within like a week, whatever, then like there's a $20 fine and stuff. And like you learn like why big corporations do all the things they do. And so it's like you start implementing these stuff in your business, and you put these rules, these systems, these processes, and it's those mistakes that you learn from. That's what you use to build your processes, to build your sales system, your marketing. Like, I was just talking to one of our students the other day ago, and they're like, well, why don't we have all these like retargeting campaigns and follow-ups and videos and all this stuff, like, and what we're building? I'm like, well, because you're a one-man studio right now, and you don't have like 20 employees and, to work in that one process. You're not, sending out, 1,000, videos a month to some, out there. You're not doing things at the same scale, right? Like you haven't learned yet, how to deal with somebody on the phone to take them from a qualified appointment to a closing call. So it's like, why would you build these stuff if that's not your current, issue right now? Like right now, like you just need to get on the phone with as many people as possible so you can get good at your sales. And then, once.
So these are the things that you learn, Sal, over the years. But what really made you go from I wouldn't say struggling, but doing too much or too much mistakes into something that is now almost predictable, repeatable, solid? What really clicked for you? What really helped you make that switch?
Sure. I'm looking around for it as you talk. You usually have a book next to me called Traction. But so this was, I think, I don't know, sometime when I was like around 27, maybe 28. So it was after my first agency, from 20 to 24, I ran my first agency, ended up closing that down, after just like, oh no, it was just depressing. Let's put it that way. Right. Went through a lot of, heartache with that. And so I put that away for a few years, running my own business. And this was like shortly after I'd moved from Florida up to Minnesota. And so I started working for this company called Tech 80. And at this company, Tech 80, they, from like the first day I was there, they had me read this book called Traction. And so, crazy enough, started reading this book called Traction, and it is basically about like, building an operating system, just like you would like how a computer is like a piece of hardware, but it has like, Windows or Mac on it. Same thing for a business, right? And so it's like, hey, this is like a system that businesses use to scale up, to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever amount of figures you want, right? And so it started, for me, it was like really eye-opening because it showed me like what it actually takes to scale a business. Like there's a certain like organization to it, there's certain structure. And like for me, that kind of changed everything. It also broke down the difference between like, like a visionary, what they call a visionary integrator, or the difference between like a COO and a COO. And it's just like this whole idea of, hey, like the reason why, these visionaries, like these guys with all these crazy ideas, like, they're really good at creative problem solving and all this, but like, they get, I don't know, they have attention span of maybe about 3 months before they get bored with stuff. And like, they're really good at thinking of ideas and solving problems, but they're not the guys who actually like execute it. So for the first time in my life, like I never knew that there was like, I didn't know any difference between being a visionary and being the integrator or being somebody who has an idea versus execute it. Because my whole entire life, especially like growing up poor and stuff like that, like you just like are used to having to fix your problem and like be the one who takes care of it. So for me, like those two things were like super eye opening, and like it like almost like reinvigorated me, and like let me like wow, like okay, so this is like everything I was doing wrong before, right? And so it's then once like I learned about that book, it was like within a couple of years, I like actually then like finally gotten back to start my own business, and that wasn't even inside the agency world. That was like completely different like technology company that turned into a construction company. But like with that book, we went from our first year in business as a drone company, right? Like we were taking pictures of cell phone towers and turning those pictures into 3D models and turning them into drawings for engineers. So we came to this really cool process, right? That like would completely change the industry. The only problem was nobody wanted to buy it because nobody trusted it. And so here we are, like, about to be bankrupt in that company, like 6 months in. And it's like, okay, well, if nobody wants to buy it, let's just do the actual, tower climbing work, like climbing up the towers, like putting stuff on them, like middle of winter, like terrible work. But it paid like it happened to pay like $5,000 a day per crew. So, long story short, turn that company around from basically going bankrupt and going under to actually, producing over 7 figures the first year, and getting it to about $350,000 a month before exiting that company. And it was a lot of it was just all due to that system, in spite of all the mistakes I even made with that business, right? And so it's like ever since then, and within like the last 5 years, I've been able to take the system from industry to industry and build businesses from zero or practically zero, right? They're like 5-10 grand a month, and literally turn them into companies that are producing 6 figures a month in revenue, which aka 7 figures annually. So, done this across that, done it across the gym vertical, agency vertical, for my own businesses, for others, and it's just been like kind of like the foundation for everything I do in business now. And it's one of the things I teach people that want to grow and build their own business, like, and just don't know where to start.
So for people that don't really know what an operating system looks like that can really help you scale your business like that, what are the most important pieces that is part of such an operating system?
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways to look at this. One of the ways I kind of think of it is like, let's say like you're a pirate, right? And, let's say you're trying to find some buried treasure. So the first thing that you need, right? Every pirate, they need a map. You need to know where X marks the spot, right? And so part of vision, or part of EOS, right? Which EOS is what is the system the book Traction is built off of. Stands for Entrepreneur Operating System. One of the things is here is like you got to have vision, right? So you have to understand, and what I mean by that is like you have to understand like what are you building in your company? Where are you going to be at 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, right? So like that's your vision. So let's say 20 years from now or 10, I don't know, Stefan, where do you want your business to be 5 years from now? Do you have that mapped out or no? Do you know, or do you not know where you're going to be 5 years from now?
5 years from now, I want to have around, let's say, 10,000 people in the Titanology community, all trying to build and scale their businesses. And I want to help literally thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs with all the information that we have, with all the guidance that we have for them in the community.
Okay, cool. So you know where you're going, right? So you just gave me a measurable there, right? So 10,000 people, right? So five years from now, 10,000 people in the community. Yeah. That would be like your BHAG, or what some call like your big, hairy, audacious goal, right? So that's the big picture. For us in our business, it's to be at $150 million in annual revenue. That's like, so 5 years from now. So that's like your X on the map, right? So now it's like, okay, cool. Well, so now you know where you're going, right? Well, now you need to know if you're on the track, right? So you need a compass, right? Compass, or GPS, right? Nowadays, GPS kind of tells you, where you're at. Hey, like take a left here, take a right here, right? And so when you're running your business, like that's what your data is for. Like your data tells you if you're on track or not. Make sense? So if like at the end of this year, you have 2,000 people, right? and then you're at 3,000 next year, then you're at 6,000 the year afterwards, and you're at 8,000 the next year, it shows you that you're on track, right? But if you're not tracking that data, well, how do you know? Right? And so the other thing is like, so you got this boat, right? Well, let's say like you're back in the day, man, and like you need people rowing your boat. You know what I'm saying? So, but if you don't have people in your boat that can row, right? Like let's say like they're not the strongest person, right? And they get tired after 20 minutes. Well, man, like that's not good. So maybe they got really good eyes, right? So like they could be like in the crow's nest looking out for rocks and icebergs, right? And there's other people that might be good like at, when you get into port, they're good at buying and selling stuff and dealing with merchants and haggling, negotiating, right? There's people that can cook, that are on the boat. And so you have all these different people on the boat, right? Which is like your business, and you got to have all the right people in the right positions. Now if your boat is too big or too small, you got too many people or not enough people, well, your boat's either not going to go anywhere or it's going to go under, right? So like there's like all these things to take in consideration. And so what most people do when they get into business, they have this idea that they're going to go do this. They just like kind of go wildly at it. You know what I'm saying? And like, or they have like a need or desire, right? To why they start their business. Like for me, I was like, I was a teenager when I got into all this. My dad broke his neck in a car accident. So for me, like, building a business was like kind of a way out of like poverty and to help my family and everything. And so the thing that helped me like go from working from somebody else to working for myself, ended up being the thing that ends up holding you back because, right, it's like you get to a certain point and like you're used to doing everything yourself. You're doing all the sales, you're doing all the work, you're doing all the, accounting and paperwork and taxes, right? I mean, well, I don't know, should be, but a lot of them even consider that when we're getting started. So you're doing all that stuff and it's just like, but you don't know like when to hire other people, what you should do or shouldn't do. And so what Traction, what this whole operating system does, is so you understand that, right? Like when you go on your computer, all you know is that you need to hit the button, it turns on, right? And you're able to open your programs. You don't have to code to be able to get there. But starting a business without an operating system is like grabbing a computer and grabbing all the parts and trying to put it together yourself and then, like get it all to work without like the help of Windows or Mac or something.
So implementing this operating system is something that everybody should do for sure.
I mean, it depends. It depends. Like if you're trying to be a solopreneur and just an owner operator, like if you're like a truck driver, right? And like all you want to do is just drive a truck and be an owner operator, then probably not, because like you don't need to worry about that. But if you want to build a business and you want to have employees and you want to be able to sell it one day and you don't want to, you want like the 4-hour work week, right? 2-hour agency. I mean, I don't know, there's all kinds of names out there. For all kinds of different programs, but basically like if you're trying to, depends, it really just depends on your goals, right?
What is your purpose for building a business? I would say as well, like it has to be your passion, or at least you have the purpose of building a business to get to your passion. Maybe it's not yet your passion or your big why, but it can help you get there. And the faster that you get there, the better. But this will come with implementing the right foundations. And that EOS is definitely something that can help. There are other programs as well that, high strategy sprints is also something that is pretty valuable, which looks like EOS. But the principles, again, are the same. Like you said, having the right kind of processes, having the right kind of people, and thinking about the long-term game as well. Not just like, okay, what am I going to do tomorrow, but also what is my goal? Where do I want to go, for sure? You also said to me in the questionnaire that we always send out to our guests, like, what is your biggest struggle? What was your biggest roadblock to get or to keep scaling? And you mentioned keeping things simple.
Yeah.
Can you explain that, Sal?
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't really like putting labels on it anymore. But if you had to do it, I've been told, ADHD, bipolar, manic, I don't know, all this stuff. And the thing is, like, most entrepreneurs, most of us are visionaries. Some of us are more the operations person. But at the end of the day, like, we're all a little bit nuts, man. We're wired a different way. Shiny object syndrome's a real thing. You're on the internet, people are trying to sell you stuff left and right. You're not sure what to think. And so you're just kind of like, bouncing around, all over the place. And that's like one of the toughest things, is like when you're starting as entrepreneurs, like, okay, what direction am I going? Right. Who should I follow? What should I listen to? And like that's really for me, like, was the first 10 years. If you look at, I don't know, like a chart, right? Line here, like, let's say, like, here's my career of entrepreneurship. You take it to here, right? That first 10 years, like, that's like, was from the $20,000 to $100,000 a year mark, right? Probably even like less than that, probably like $20,000 to $70,000 a year in sales. And so it was like that for a very long time. And then all of a sudden started having some explosive growth. And it was because not having a vision, not having a plan, not knowing where you're going, right? And so the biggest thing I'll tell people is when you're looking at, your life as an entrepreneur, right? Two things are very important: focus and patience. Which is like the opposite of why we get into what we do. Right? Like, we can't hold down jobs because we're not patient. We can focus, but it's like the things that are the complete opposite of why we get started is the thing that's actually going to prevent our success. And so the whole hustle mentality and just going out there and grinding and selling, like, that's great to get you started. That'll get you to like your first, like, $3,000 to $10,000 a month. Right. But what gets you started, that's what's going to hold you back. And so it really just comes down to, having that focus and the patience and, having a long-term plan, which is important because you got to have vision to be able to bring other people on board, to get people excited about what you're building. And then they have to be sold into that vision. Like, people underestimate how important it is when you start a business that, like, it's actually not depending on you, it's depending on everybody else that's part of your organization, right? So like, people, like, that's the biggest thing I struggle with, because I want things done my way and this way and blah blah blah. And like, dude, most leaders, I posted this on Facebook the other day, go, we're terrible managers, like, absolutely terrible. Because like, a manager's whole job is just to manage the system that's already built and make sure that people are hitting their numbers, or manage, or fulfilling their part in those processes, right? And so you, as a visionary, right, like, you're there, like, looking at stuff, you're trying to fix stuff all the time, you're breaking stuff in the process, and it's just like, your people, man, like, you just kind of got to, like, leave them alone and let them do their job, and like, we're terrible at doing that, right? So it's like, but you don't understand, like, these different levels of employees, that there's some people that are better at just doing the job, that's within, following SOPs. And then there's managers who make sure everybody else is following those. And you have people that are watching out for your managers, right? And then you have leaders who are more of like the critical thinkers. It's like, like, even like, me as a visionary, I need somebody in the company who can tell me, hey, your ideas are stupid and dumb, and do it in a way like where we're not like, fist fighting or nothing, because but
yeah, I think that's a great point, that once you start assembling your team, that you actually don't try to just copy yourself, because if everybody's, like you said, if everybody's a visionary or nobody's an implementer, well, yeah, you're gonna struggle a lot, I would say, and it's true. I mean, there's a great survey, I would call it, almost, out there that can help you identify how your team is composed, and it's called Working Genius. That's a new one, and it's also based on, like, a lot of these personality things. But Working Genius will tell you if your team consists at least of some people that can do implementation, that can follow it up until the end, that have some visionaries, that have this kind of combination that you need within your company. That's a great one, and that's a great point that you make right there.
Yeah. For one of the most exciting things is working in organizations now, where, because in the past I've always, like, joke around, like, good cop, bad cop. I'm always the bad cop.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the like you don't want like the visionary, the CEO of the company. You want that's the one that everybody's supposed to love. You don't want that, everybody hating on that guy, right? Like that's the trader's job or the COO's job. And so in the past, I've always been the one that's had to been like, the heavy, as they say. So now it's at a point like our culture, like for example, in SM180 here, our culture is set up now to where there's people in our organization that are like, man, like this person's got to go because like they're not, hitting their numbers, like they're not, like they basically like they understand like, hey, like if people are coming in here and not following the core values of the business, they're not hitting their numbers, like they're not doing things the right way. Like they get upset. Like they're not trying to let people, like get away with stuff. Like if you go to your typical like Walmart or McDonald's or something like that, right? Like people, like the employees' typical culture is like, like they don't really care about the organization. They're just trying to get their paycheck.
Yeah.
We'll try to get away with as much as possible. Whereas like in our organization, like the culture is like, like we're really big into like a lot of military stuff. Like we believe in like extreme ownership, like taking accountability for everything. We say stuff like, don't be a nice guy, be a good guy. A nice guy will just like sugarcoat things, say whatever. But a good guy, even if like you're gonna get pissed off at them, will say what they have to say. What's right.
Yeah.
Find an excuse to win. There's a million reasons, why not to get something done, but find the one reason why you have to win. And so our culture really believes in that. And our team, we train our team like, hey man, when everybody's doing their job, that means that our clients are taken care of. That means that they're happy. They're spending more money, right? We're keeping people longer, which means that we're making more money as a business, which means there's bonuses, which means people can make more money. We can hire more people, bring more friends and family. And like everybody in the business lives up to that. And if somebody like is not living up to that, like I don't need to be spying on all of our people because our culture is so strong that it's going to find and eliminate those threats.
That's a really good thing that you say that. Indeed, building a great culture will keep your team aboard and will make your team as efficient and as productive as it can because you're all in it together, right? And having that great culture is essential for that. And this is what I see a lot of people making mistakes on because they still think they're in a big corporation, like you said, and they still think that the rules that apply there or the way that it works there is the same as like in a smaller company, your own company. And that's just not true because in a bigger company, it's much harder to get everybody aligned for sure. But in a smaller company, it should be like the first thing to do.
I mean, all it takes is one person to destroy your business, especially like when you're younger. It's like, when you're a baby, right? Like you're more, like if you get sick or you get cold or the chicken or what are they called? What's it called? Chicken pox, right? Measles, I don't know. So that everybody used to get, right? Like I was probably one like on the border of the generation, but I was probably one of the last people to get chicken pox, right? Because now you just don't hear about it anymore. But the point is like, when you're younger, right? And like that stuff happens, it affects you more, just like when you're older. And so it's like if you look at a business like a person, right? When they're younger, it's like the more attacks that you have on your business, like the harder it is. Like I mean, to be honest, like they say, like 99% of small businesses fail. So it's, dude, you're set off from the very beginning. Like dude, all the odds are against you, right? Yeah. And so if you think about it, let's say like you're one person in a business, then you bring on a business partner or you bring on an employee. Well, now, like, how powerful is that second person, right? And so now 3, 4, 5, 10 people. But no matter how big you get, all it takes is that one person to spread like cancer. And I've literally lost millions of dollars because of one wrong person, in the organization. I've had to sell companies early, because of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Politics is a real thing once you start getting investors and, it gets,
Sometimes.
Be careful about outside investors, especially those that aren't working in the organization on the day-to-day. I can talk about that all day, but the point is all it takes is one person, and like they can destroy you inside out. It's like, so imagine you have like 10 people working your business. Let's say you're doing like I don't know, 60 to 100 grand a year as an agency. And you have this one sales guy who's just like amazing at sales, like he's closing deals left and right. He probably brings in 8% of the business, but dude is a freaking dick to deal with. Everybody hates him, and all of your employees are leaving. Like eventually, like you're not going to have a business anymore because everybody's going to leave because of this guy. He's a basically sales terrorist, right? So that's what happens when you have somebody who can do their job and does a great job, but they're not the right culture fit. And so you got to have both. You can have somebody who everybody loves, but they suck at their job, and so they're hurting the company, right?
This is something that I talk about as well in what I do in Titanology. Like I call it like be a culture warrior, be somebody be a CEO that keeps fighting for a good culture and do everything that you can, implement these things within your team so they feel that the culture is really sticking. It's really something. Also, it translates also to your customers, because if your customers feel that the culture is there across the board, they will feel much happier to work with you. That's something I truly believe as well.
I mean, I don't know. I think I've had this on my LinkedIn forever. I think it's gone now, but and this is something. I think the first time I heard it was from like T-Mobile's old CEO. I don't know, kind of like a guy that's a little bit out there. You know what I'm saying? The longer black dark hair. I forgot his name, but anyways, like it really just comes down to this. If you employees are happy, right? If your number one priority is taking care of your employees, then they're going to take care of your clients, right? And so it's kind of weird, right? Because most time you think like take care of your clients, then your employees, right? For me, it's just like, you take care of the employees, they take care of the clients, right? Clients are taken care of. That takes care of, cash flow. That takes care of pretty much everything else, right? And that pretty much means that you're going to be happy, As far as like, shareholders, man, I don't know, man. I can't. Public companies, man, are the worst, but
yeah.
So Sal, the grip and it's done.
I want to thank you. We're at the end here of our podcast, of our interview here, and I'm pretty sure that we can fill another hour with this. But I want to already thank you for your time right now, for your information, for your value that you have shared with us. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't really have an offer or anything to sell. Like we are an agency. I only work with like 2 or 3 people per year, and I'm already like full up on that. But if you just want to stop in, say hey, just find me on Facebook, Salvatore Steffano.
It's pretty easy to find. Not many people that called that way, so I think it's easy to find right there.
Yeah, you'll be able to find me. Look up the name on screen. Maybe you've pulled the one. I think like I don't know. There's like 2 of them, but the one that's like the most updated stuff because the profile I've been logged into in forever. You'll know the difference.
All right. So check out Sal on Facebook for sure. A lot of great stuff there for sure. Thank you, Sal, again for your time. And let's catch up soon.
Thanks for having us fun. Take care.
See you later.